After my 4-month-long data general project was finished, I wanted a short break. So I spent the last 2 weeks taking some much needed time off. Purely by coincidence, the Switch 2 came out just before I started my break, and I ended up playing a ton of Mario Kart World. The free roam really resonated with me, and I was enjoying the P-Switch missions in particular. It's definitely the next evolution of the missions in Mario Kart DS, my previous favorite entry in the series. But the game doesn't track which ones you've completed, beyond changing them from blue to gray when you look at them in the overworld, and a counter on the map. Overall, the map itself shows you almost nothing. So I made my own online map that you can now use to track your own progress and see where everything is. I might have accidentally even made a revolutionary program for speedrunning. It has all 394 currently known P-Switch locations, and thanks to some help, now has all question mark panels and Peach medallions. Yeah, I spent my time off writing software that I'm now making a video about. I'm not good at taking time off. I wasn't originally going to make a video about this map, but it started being mentioned by some game news outlets, so I figured I should probably talk about it myself if it's gonna get attention on its own. I'm going to take you through how I designed the map, how I designed the website from scratch, how I gathered the data, and the kinds of features I'm working on with a large dataset like this. Hey, doesn't it suck how many of the third-party games for Switch 2 are game keycards? At least they tell us on the box you're gonna have to download the game from a server, but you know what they don't tell you? How long that server will be kept running. Right next to the game keycard games on the same shelf are other games that actually are on the cartridge. You can buy either product with generally the same license, but one of them has a limited usable life and you don't know what that limit is. Is that even legal? The answer is, we don't know. If you were a European citizen, I implore you to go to stopkillinggames.com and look at the initiative and sign it if you want to help protect your consumer rights. There's only 1 month left to sign, and if it passes, the European Commission will be forced to look into the legalities of the issue, something that has never been done. If you're in the UK, there is a separate petition that ends even sooner to have your parliament look at the issue. Even if you don't care about game preservation, it should be your right to know exactly what you are buying. Time is running out, so if you've been waiting to get around to looking into this, right now is your last chance. First, let me explain the premise of the game so you can understand the map. Mario Kart World is a departure from previous entries and features a cohesive world that almost all tracks are integrated into. The areas in between the tracks are used in different race modes as a way to transit from one track to another. But the game also features a free roam mode that allows you to explore the entire map as you please. I've seen a bunch of people have a difficult time finding this mode. You just press the plus button on the main menu. Now on the map in free roam, there are 3 main types of collectibles. Around the courses, there are 150 question mark panels you can drive over. Scattered everywhere, there are 200 Peach medallions. I got help from Peekaboo on the Speedrun Discord in mapping those because it took me way too long to do the P-switches I cared more about. Speaking of, spread around the entire map are the 394 P-switches. These start a unique mission nearby that you have a limited time to complete. Collecting or finishing any of the 744 items or missions rewards you with a sticker, and the only use for it is to have an icon next to your name in multiplayer and an imperceptibly small texture on your cart. Now, collecting or finishing all panels, medallions, or missions gets you nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, while I would prefer something, I don't mind this, at least for the P-switches. You know what you get for completing the knockout races? Also nothing. It's about the journey, not the destination with arcade driving games like this. For the panels and medallions, the journey itself isn't exactly that great though, and these are missing a reason to exist. The stickers you get from the medallions aren't even unique and are randomly taken from a pool that you also get stickers from by just driving or gliding or doing stunts. The P-switch missions themselves though are fun just to play, but I feel like Nintendo was treating them like Korok seeds in Breath of the Wild, shotgunning them all over the map so you're guaranteed to find some, but not expecting you to find them all. But unlike Koroks, the missions offer unique challenges, and finding them all is the only way to really experience everything that free roam offers. The lack of any in-game map tracking here is baffling Even Breath of the Wild tracked the Korok seeds. But this video isn't a review of the game. That's just everything you need to know to understand my map and the decisions behind it. I wanted to find all of the P-switches, but with the game being of no help at all, it was up to the community to find them and share where they are. When I was working on this, we weren't even sure that 394 missions were the max. Well, we still aren't. It's just that no one has found any more so far. 394 is a super weird number. Fur was the first person to get all of them, which was a big help to know where they were. But the game only released a couple of weeks ago, and there hasn't been that much time for maps to be made. IGN started on one, but it's still unfinished as I'm releasing this video. Game 8 has a more complete one, but when I was working on my map, it had a number of problems with accuracies. Now, the other problem is that I had found nearly 350 of the P-switches on my own by the time I realized that I actually wanted to finish and experience all of them. But lacking any reasonable in-game tracking meant that I would have to go back over every previous P-switch if I wanted to use the existing maps to check if I did them. And if I was doing that, I decided I would take matters into my own hands, so it would be easier for everyone else in the future. And that is one of the reasons I decided to make this map. So I put in my time and I made this map the best that I could. I'll get to how I made this map and why it is the most accurate map available later in this video, but this is the best map that you can use to find and track all of the items in the game now. All 394 P-switches are represented with markers on the map. Selecting any of them reveals two game screenshots, one that shows you where the P-switch is located and what the mission title reveal shows you. After you complete a mission or collect the item in the game, you can mark it off as completed on the map by clicking a button or hitting the spacebar. Unlike every other available map for this game right now, you don't need an account to save your progress. The save button gives you a file that you can keep and re-upload later to resume your tracking. You are given the power instead of it being held on my servers. Actually, the server doesn't hold any information about the user, but I'll talk more about that later. This completion tracking applies to all markers on the map, like the medallions and the panels. It also applies to custom markers. Say you found a cool spot on the map that you want to go back to. You can click where it is, type in a marker name, and then add it. It will appear on the map, and these custom markers are also saved to your completion tracking to be reloaded later. All of the markers also show in lists on the left side menu. When you click on one of these, the map will automatically pan and zoom over to it to show you where it is. The P-switch list is unique and also allows you to search in it. This will let you filter down to, say, all of the tribute tracks that let you race on modern renditions of the SNES game tracks. Seriously, the missions in this game are super varied and awesome. There are 6 special missions in the map that are a really fun challenge of your mastery of the controls. There's one where the spike enemies are being chased by the cops. Plenty that mimic Hydro Thunder, and other fun ones that I don't want to spoil. Speaking of spoiling, I'd posted this in a few places before making this video, and one of the features that I was asked to add, I agreed was a good idea: a spoiler-free mode. Clicking here will reload the site and hide any markers for the collectibles and missions that you haven't completed. You can also bookmark this version of the site as well, so you can come back to the spoiler-free mode later. The searching here is the best way to find and mark these completed, but there's not a lot you can do about some of the things partially matching, and it's not going to be great for, like, the Peach medallions. So you can also zoom in on the map and try to click blindly around where you are, which will also select them. This can make navigating the map a little tricky though, because you could click things that you didn't mean to sometimes, but it's the best compromise that I could come up with. Now, you may have noticed that selecting the P-switches also puts another line and mark on the map. Most of the missions have you drive a distance away from the start to reach a goal or collect coins. For each of these, I mapped not only the start position, but also the end. This is because of the routing menu. This is a speedrun focused option, but it could still be used by anyone who wants to plan a route in the game. It allows you to make multiple segments, each with a number of splits that are added from the map markers. Just select a marker, add it to the split, repeat that a few times, and now you have a route. The P-switch splits have an RW next to them because when you complete a mission, you can click one button to retry it. So I added a toggle to mark a retry warp back to the start. I was surprised to find that this map routing feature isn't common. Actually, I couldn't find a single other online game map with this functionality. I'm currently working on restructuring this code to be usable with other game maps, and we'll be releasing it when I'm done. This has to be useful for plenty of other games. Shout out to Limcube for wanting to run an all P-switch category, which gave me the idea to add this feature. He's actually already used it for a first route that let him get all 394 P-Switch missions done in 7 hours. This routing feature also lets you save and reload the routes, but you don't get these saved to your completion file. They're instead saved as an LSS file. This is just a renamed XML that is used to denote live split configurations. This map directly exports your routes to be usable with live split. Just load the file from the map and bam, your route is now in live split. Due to the way that live split handles files, though, you should make a copy of it first and don't edit it in live split if you want to re-upload it, because live split breaks some things. Now, specifically for routing splits for speedruns, there are marker categories for tracks and other drivers on the map. You can warp to the tracks in free roam and change to those characters on the map, which can make routing much more interesting. Custom markers are also supported for routing, which can be used to show a particular path to take or add a note. If you reload a route that is missing a marker, it will highlight it in red and skip over that marker with a dashed line. The last couple of features related to this are the ability to show all of the end positions at once and show all of the segment routes at once. Now, I'm still working on this and considering adding some more features. I think a toggle to hide markers included in other routes can be helpful to make sure that you aren't missing any. And a more generic text note option for route splits and some markers would probably be good. Like, you need to know that there are some medallions that you can only get if you approach them from a specific angle to hit a loading zone. If you have any feature ideas, I would love to hear them in the comments. That's not engagement farming. I've added a number of requested features, like the spoiler mode, already. Okay, so now you've seen the map and what it can do. So let's take a look behind the curtain and go over how it works. The entire site is programmed in pure HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. No backend interpreters like PHP or Python, and no databases like SQL. It uses no external libraries and supports desktop and mobile on both Android and iOS. And it's rendered in pure HTML canvas. Now, I am not a front-end dev, and a lot of this was new to me, but one of the other reasons that I wanted to make this map was an excuse to better hone these skills, and in particular, finally learn how to use Canvas. But before I started though, I needed to come up with a way to reliably gather data from the game for the map. Now, I didn't place any of these map markers based on vibes, mostly because the actual in-game map sucks. Seriously, this image is far more artistic than it is accurate. There is nothing for the roads inside the courses. The train tracks aren't even differentiated from the open roads, and what roads there are so faint that most players probably don't even realize that they're there. And the land masses aren't even correct. This P-switch is positioned here from my measurements, but it's actually on the other bank of the river. That's just one example. Now, since the in-game map was worthless, I devised a different method that would have worked even with a blank screen, as long as I could zoom out and see the player. By zooming all the way out to see the whole thing, I could get a consistent view relative to the same position. I then used video capture of the game while in the map and used OBS to position an alignment image that I made perfectly over the player icon. This let me use the image position to get the coordinates for the player anywhere in the world within the resolution of the 1080p video I was capturing. So to map the location of anything, I just needed to put my player character on it, go to the map, zoom out, align my image, and there are my measurements. Now, the radius of the character circle in pixels is 29, so I added an offset option to my map so I could just write the numbers down as I saw them. This reduced the risk of making a mistake for manually pre-calculating the about 1,500 values for the X and Y coordinates of the start and end positions of each mission. But with that, I knew that I could get the primary data that I needed to make a map. There were some other things that I knew I could track though, like the time to complete a mission, how difficult I felt it was, or what kind of mission it was. But I decided that just capturing a screenshot using photo mode that showed a landmark relative to the P-switch and the mission title screen so that I could later transcribe the mission name for searching was all that I would grab. I had a limited amount of time to do this, and it still took a ridiculously long time. I then went ahead and collected the data for about 60 P-switches by just randomly driving around the map so I could start to build an initial data set to write the software against. Once I had enough data to work with, I started the software itself. MDN is an absolutely invaluable resource for learning stuff like this. But in this case, while I was able to look up some things, there were limits, and I knew I would need to be able to zoom the map, and that's a bit more complicated than the things they usually get into there. But this article by Rob Louie was extremely helpful in figuring out how to get started with that. I would end up reworking this tutorial code a lot by the end, but it was a great starting point. Then I just needed to figure out how to add map markers. This ended up being one of the core project choices. So I took some inspiration from the Breath of the Wild object map, which uses HTML image elements positioned over the map. But using image elements over the map would work, and led to my first modifications of the pan zoom code so that I could externally determine where to position things relative to the map changes. I got that working, and that was the start of the map being useful. With some of those foundational choices, my first usable version was able to load in the data, add the map markers, and populate a list. Clicking either a marker or the list would bring up the images and set the title to the mission description. This was the proof of concept that I needed to know that this vision could actually be viable, and man, did it feel good to get to this point. From here, it was mostly adding in the main logic of the different features I wanted. Saving and loading, the completion is done as a simple JSON file. The next major feature to get added was the routing. One of the things I was most concerned about was drawing the routes, but that ended up being trivial. HTML canvas is kind of awesome, and it's very similar to plotting with move and draw commands. I was right at home with this after my HPGL experience. With the routing rendering now came the ability to save and load it. From the start, I wanted the ability to export the route directly to LiveSplit, but I knew that this would be somewhat limited in how I could save the data. The way that data handling for LiveSplit works is very delicate. LiveSplit uses XML as the data format for its split files. I thought this would make it easy to work with, but I'm guessing they rolled their own parser for it because it is extremely strict and destructive. After some more research, I found out there is a namespace version of the element creation function, and that you could put a stricter namespace in it that would keep the case set for the string of the markup. This worked, and I was finally able to output something that LiveSplit would take. Now after that, I had the idea to style the UI after the easily missed manual built into the game. There is one bug that I know of with the CSS. If you reduce the vertical height of a box with an internal scrolling element, the lowest element will clip slightly into the bottom of the box. I have no idea how to solve this. I gave up when I got it to stop blocking content, and I don't want to upset the delicate balance any further. Now, I was mostly happy with how it all works around this time, and I decided to post it to the Mario Kart subreddit page to gauge interest. The next day is when I woke up to it being recommended by Games Radar above the Game 8 map that existed before it. This is when I realized I needed to make this video. But there was one more problem I needed to solve before I talk about it here: mobile support. I had at least made the page a sort of responsive design where the left and right menus were merged into a single horizontal menu that doesn't fill the whole screen. But the tutorial code I had based my map control on was only responding to mouse events, not touch. I found the MDN docs for what the raw touch event outputs are and started creating functions for them that would wrap and call my existing mouse events to keep the code simple. I was able to get panning working easily enough, but zooming was a whole other problem. The touch events don't have any concept of gestures that I could find. You have to watch touch points that happen yourself and determine what actions are happening. I started trying to figure out how to handle this, but I just couldn't get it to work. I started looking over the event code again and realized almost immediately that I made some super basic copy-paste errors while I was distracted on my stream. I'm not kidding. I changed like 5 lines of code and bam, the touch controls were fully working. There were some other CSS things that I did to make the text size better that I had to learn about, but the touchscreen events were the last major hurdle. And overall, that was the last feature that I wanted to get added before making this video. Like I said at the start of this, I am not a web dev, and especially not front end, but this was a fun project to learn on and a good reminder of why I don't enjoy this, especially all the quirks of mobile development. And that is the full story of how I made this map and how it works. Would I do it again? Well, we'll see on July 17th. I want to make this software usable for other games, and I think if I didn't have to develop the software in tandem with the data collection, it wouldn't have been as grueling of a task. So I'm probably going to give it another shot, but it was a great learning process, and it was nice to work on a different kind of project for a change. Before I close this out, I again ask any European or UK viewers to please consider checking out Stop Killing Games. It really is a serious consumer rights issue that you can voice your opinion on in a meaningful way, but time is limited. I made this same call to action last year when this campaign started, and it is now near to its end. Well, I hope you enjoyed this very different video for me. If you did, you might want to subscribe. If you want to help support the channel, you can find me on Patreon, but for now, that's it, and I will see you next time. I just realized that I was still wearing my bone conduction headphones throughout that whole video. I wasn't actually listening to anything. I just forgot I had them on because I wear them so much, I don't even notice anymore.